The most humiliating part was not that they invited Nora Whitaker to the company dinner as a joke. It was that, for 1 second, I almost helped them make it funny. I almost smiled. Almost thanked Brent. Almost gave Nora the soft apology I used when strangers were deciding what dignity I was allowed to keep. That was the version Grant Havel had been selling for months. He had made me sound sensitive, intense, unstable over a small accounting disagreement. That was his phrase for the missing vendor payments I found. Altered invoice dates, duplicate approvals, and his signature on a file he later swore he had never seen. Just me, becoming unstable when I started asking the wrong questions. The rumor never arrived loudly. Grant placed it into polite pauses after my name until everyone knew where to set their doubt. So when Brent stood in the private dining room and said, "We found someone who can handle Caleb tonight," half the table laughed before they heard how ugly it sounded. Then Nora walked in. The laughter thinned, but nobody apologized. Rain dotted her gray coat. One hand gripped her bag. 6 months ago, Nora had been Grant's assistant and the last person to see the audit file before it disappeared. When I asked what happened, she looked me in the eye and said,
"Tell me what you
"I
know."
don't remember." That answer cost me my promotion, my office, and the peace I had left at home. Grant smiled like she needed permission. "Nora," he said, "this really isn't the time." For a second, I thought she would leave. Instead, Nora pulled a blue folder from her bag and placed it between my plate and Brent's wineglass. My name was written across the tab. The room went quiet enough for the rain to sound loud. "If I stay quiet again," Nora said, "then I'm not different from them." Again, that word landed harder than the laughter. Because whatever was inside that folder, Nora had not found it tonight. She had known. She had let them ruin me. And she had come here anyway. Brent reached for his glass, missed the stem, and knocked it against his knife. "Well," he said, forcing a laugh, "that got serious." No one helped him save it. There were 13 people at the table, counting me. 2 managers. 3 analysts. Lydia Crane from HR, who had once told me my desk relocation was not a punishment, just a reset. Mara Denton, who used to ask me to review her month-end schedules before she stopped meeting my eyes in the coffee area. And Grant, seated near the center as if the restaurant had arranged itself around him. Nora remained standing. Her coat dripped onto the polished wood floor. She did not seem to notice. I had imagined seeing her again many times. In some versions, I shouted. In others, I asked why. In the version I hated most, I apologized for putting her in a difficult position and made the whole thing easier for her. That version rose in my throat now. I swallowed it. Grant set his napkin beside his plate. "Nora, whatever you think you have, this is not an appropriate place." "No," she said, "it's the place you chose."
This is the place you chose.
The sentence was small, but it changed the air. Grant turned to me with that patient face he used in meetings. "Caleb, I know this is uncomfortable, but you don't have to participate in someone else's misunderstanding." There it was. The velvet rope. Be reasonable. Be quiet. Be grateful someone was still speaking gently. My hand rested beside the folder. I could see the edge of a photocopied page inside, and beneath it, a yellow sticky note folded in half. Lydia's face had gone pale enough for her lipstick to look too bright.
It's not.
"Is it a
real.
misunderstanding?" I asked. My voice came out lower than I expected. Grant's smile arrived late. "It has been handled internally." That isn't what I asked. Outside, headlights smeared across wet glass. Inside, the candle in front of Brent flickered every time someone shifted. I noticed all of it because I could not make myself open the folder yet. For months, I had wanted proof. Now proof was close enough to touch, and my fingers would not move. Nora turned the folder so the tab faced me. Caleb Moore. Under my name was a smaller line in black marker. Original intake copy. A pressure opened behind my ribs. Don't, Grant said. Not loudly. That made it worse. He said it like a man watching someone reach toward a live wire. Nora heard it too.
Myself.
You told Lydia the original was destroyed. she
But you
said.
said it was
Lydia closed
destroyed.
her
He
eyes.
lied.
Brent whispered,
It's still
"What
out
original?"
there. We
No
have
one
to move
answered him.
now.
I opened the folder. The first page was familiar enough to make my stomach turn. It was the disciplinary note HR had shown me 5 months earlier, the one that described me as fixated, resistant to supervision, and unable to move past a minor vendor issue. But this copy had a second page. The version I had been shown did
I
not.
have the original
On it was my
documents.
own internal note, dated 3 days before Grant
don't have
claimed I
anything.
had become disruptive. Vendor file should be frozen pending review of duplicate approval chain. Below that, in an email response I had never seen, Grant had written, "Do not freeze. Route through my office. Keep Caleb out of vendor contact until I speak with Lydia." My mouth went dry. Nora placed one hand on the back of the empty chair beside her, but she still did not
I
sit.
copied the
"I
report.
copied it when I should have reported it," she
I know.
said. "That doesn't make what I did right. It only means this is
The
real."
copy is real.
Lydia pushed back from the table. "Nora."
No, that can't.
"No," Nora said,
told you to
her
stay out
voice
of my
shaking
way.
now. "You don't get to use my name like a leash." A server appeared with a tray of desserts, saw the folder, and backed away. Grant let the disappointment leave his face. For one blink, he looked cornered. Then pleasant again. "Caleb," he said,
didn't do
"you
it.
should be
Don't
very
accuse her
careful
of
about
this.
accepting
proof
stolen
right there in
personnel
her
material
hands.
from a
It's not
former
what you
employee
think.
with her
It's
own
exactly
issues."
what I think.
There was
He's
the second
unstable,
word.
B.
Unstable had been
You
for
know
me.
he has issues.
Issues was for
Calm
Nora.
down, it's just
A
business.
month ago, I might have
He's not
closed the
wrong.
folder to spare everyone the embarrassment of truth arriving during dessert. Instead, I kept my palm flat on the first page. "Why did you say stolen?" I asked. Grant's eyes sharpened. I had not accused him of anything yet. Nora had not either, but he had already chosen the word that protected him.
Don't tell him
Mara
anything.
pushed her chair
has
back
to
just
know.
enough to make the
He
legs
doesn't
scrape.
need to know.
"Grant," she said, "why would
Why
Caleb's
is there a
note
second
have a
page?
second page?"
I can
He did
explain
not look
everything.
at her. He
Please,
looked at
don't do
Lydia.
this.
That was the first mistake I saw him make. Nora finally sat beside me, not close enough to touch, but close enough that the table understood something had shifted. She did not rescue me. She did not speak over me. She opened the folder to the next page and let me decide whether to read. At the bottom was a receipt from a restaurant across town. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 consulting vendor listed under a name I recognized from the payment chain. The date was the night before my promotion was revoked. All at once, the dinner stopped being a joke. Nora stopped being the woman they had invited to humiliate me. The blue folder stopped being only evidence. It was a line. On one side was the life Grant
think
had
you
written
can
for
do
me.
this?
Difficult, unstable, grateful
already
for scraps
have.
of dignity. On the other was whatever waited if I stopped helping him keep that story neat. I closed
Why
the folder
tonight?
halfway, then looked at Nora. "Why tonight?" I asked.
couldn't.
Her answer came quietly. "Because tonight they were going to make you
We
thank them
both
for
helped
it."
you get here.
Across the table, Grant's face changed
don't
again.
understand.
This time, everyone
He's right,
saw.
now say it.
I did not read the rest of the folder at the table. That surprised people more than if I had shouted. Brent kept glancing from my face to the blue tab, waiting for the scene to become something he could tell later. Lydia had one hand pressed to the base of her throat. Mara sat frozen with her chair angled away from Grant, as if distance could keep her from being part of what she had heard. Grant watched me the way he watched quarterly numbers that did not behave. "Caleb," he said, "we can address this Monday in a proper setting." A proper setting. 5 months earlier, the proper setting had been a glass conference room with Lydia on my left and Grant across from me, his cufflinks flat against the table, his voice calm enough to make my panic look unprofessional. They had slid the disciplinary note toward me and waited while I read sentences that turned my caution into obsession. I had asked for the original vendor chain. Grant had said, "We are past that." I had asked who removed the second page. Lydia had said, "This is not an interrogation." Then I had done what I always did when the room began to tilt toward me. I made myself smaller. "I'm sorry if my questions came across the wrong way," I had said. Grant had folded his hands like a man accepting a confession. That apology became the first line people remembered. Not the invoices. Not the duplicate approval. My apology. At the dinner table, the same old sentence rose inside me again. I could feel its shape before it reached my mouth, Sorry. Sorry for the timing. Sorry for the discomfort. Sorry for forcing everyone to look at what they had helped carry. Nora's hand moved, not toward me, but toward the folder. She pressed 2 fingers on the cover, just enough to keep it from sliding, when Brent's glass trembled against the table. "You don't have to make this easier," she said. Not loud. Not tender. Just true. The words caught me in a place nobody at Westbridge ever touched. When I was 9, my father taught me that good men did not make scenes. He said it after my mother cried in the grocery store because a cashier accused her of using an expired coupon she had never handed over. My father paid twice, guided her out by the elbow, and told me in the car, "A clean life does not need a loud defense." I believed him. For years, I mistook silence for strength. In school, I let a teacher misread my homework because correcting him felt disrespectful. At home, when my life grew tense, I answered disappointment by becoming quieter, cleaner, easier to live around. I had built an entire life out of trying not to be a burden. Westbridge loved that version of me until I found a number that would not balance. The missing payments were small enough to ignore if a person wanted comfort more than accuracy. 11,000 here. 28,000 there. Vendor codes routed through a consulting line, then corrected after approval. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone wanted to risk a promotion over. But numbers do not care who sign them. I had written one internal note, then another. Then I requested a freeze. The next week, Grant stopped dropping by my desk. The week after that, Brent started calling me Detective Moore. At first, it sounded harmless. Then people smiled before I entered rooms. By the time my promotion vanished, no one had to explain why. They just used careful words. Fit. Temperament. Judgment. Perspective. Nora had been there for some of it. That was what made her presence beside me hard to understand. She had not looked powerful 6 months ago. She moved through the office with a stack of folders against her chest and a badge that never worked on the first try. She wore inexpensive flats and kept her hair clipped back with a black beret. People asked her for things without learning her name. I had learned it because she noticed details. Once, when payroll sent my tax form to the wrong floor, Nora brought it to my desk before I knew it was missing. Another time, she caught Lydia entering the wrong middle initial on an employee separation packet and fixed it quietly. She had the kind of carefulness nobody clapped for until it saved them. That was why, when the audit file disappeared, I went to her. She had been standing by the copier outside HR with a stack of vendor forms, the machine spitting warm pages into the tray. "Nora," I had said. "Did anyone pull the audit folder after I sent my note?" Her face changed so slightly I might have missed it if I had not spent my life studying rooms for danger. Then she said, "I don't remember. Not I didn't see. Not I can't tell you. I don't remember." She chose a sentence with a locked door inside it. At the dinner, she sat beside that locked door and waited for me to decide whether to open the next one. I closed the folder. Grant's relief flashed too early. "We're leaving," I said. Brent blinked. "Wait, what?" I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped louder than I meant them to. My jacket caught on the edge of the seat, and for a stupid second I wrestled with it like the furniture had a vote. Nora stood, but she did not reach for me. That mattered. If she had touched my arm, Grant would have made it a headline by morning. Caleb let out by former assistant. Caleb emotional after dinner incident. Caleb influenced by woman with grievance. Instead, Nora picked up the blue folder and held it against her coat. "Your car is in the west lot?" she asked. I nodded. "Mine too." Outside the private dining room, the restaurant was bright and ordinary. A hostess smiled at us because she had not heard my name become a weapon. Someone laughed near the coat stand, and my shoulders tightened before I could stop them. Nora noticed. She slowed, not enough to embarrass me, just enough to let the sound pass. That was the first thing she saw that nobody else did. In the lobby, Grant caught up with us. His shoes made no sound on the marble. "Caleb," he said, "do not make a career-ending mistake because someone with regrets wants absolution." The old instinct came back hard. I wanted to explain that I was not trying to end anything. I wanted to promise I would be reasonable. I wanted to tell him I understood the company had processes, that I respected confidentiality, that I was sorry the dinner had become difficult. My hand tightened around my keys until the metal bit into my palm. Nora kept her eyes on the glass doors. Not rescuing, not coaching, waiting. Grant stepped closer. You are still employed as of tonight. Think carefully. There it was. The offer and the threat wearing the same suit. I turned the key ring once in my hand. I have been thinking carefully for 6 months, I said. Grant's jaw shifted. Behind him, through the doorway, Mara had followed us halfway out. She held her phone at her side, screen dark, face uncertain. Grant saw her too. His expression softened for the witness. We all want what is best for Caleb, he said. That sentence might have worked before Brent's joke, before the folder, before Nora's word again split open the night. I opened the glass door and let the rain air in. No, I said. You want what sounds best for you. Then I walked out before I could apologize for saying it. Rain turned the parking lot lights into long yellow smears across the asphalt. I made it 6 steps past the restaurant doors before my hands began to shake. Not dramatically. Just enough that I pressed the trunk button twice instead of unlocking the car. The trunk popped open behind me. Nora stopped at the curb with the blue folder flat against her coat, protecting it from the rain. You can take it, she said. I made copies. The word copies should have made me feel safer. It made the whole thing feel planned. I shut the trunk, opened the driver's door, and stood there with rain tapping the roof. Where are the originals? Not with me. That is not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you in a parking lot with Grant watching from the windows. I did not turn. The old part of me wanted to check his face, measure his anger, prepare my voice for the next apology. Instead, I got into the car. Nora walked to the passenger's side but did not open the door until I unlocked it. Another small thing. She asked permission without making me say yes. Inside, the car smelled of old coffee and lemon wipes. I had cleaned it that morning because order was easier to control than people. Nora placed the folder on her lap. I need to show you 3 things, she said. Not everything. Not yet. Why not? Because if you see all of it at once, you'll do what you've been trained to do. I turned the engine on for heat. The vents coughed cold air before warming. And what is that? You'll try to make sense of it for everyone else before you let yourself be angry. Water ran down the windshield. Through it, Grant stood under the awning with his phone to his ear. Lydia was beside him, arms folded tight. Nora opened the folder. The first page was a log sheet with my employee ID at the top and 3 columns. Date, document reviewed. Reviewer initials. The audit file had been signed out 4 times after my request to freeze the vendor account. Once by Grant. Twice by Lydia. Once by Nora. My thumb pressed against the steering wheel seam. You signed it out. I did. Before or after I asked you what happened? Her mouth tightened. Before. I waited. She made herself continue. The morning after Grant told me to pull the folder and bring it to his office. The heater warmed my face, but my shirt still clung damply to my back. You told me you didn't remember. I know. The sentence sat between us with nowhere decent to go. I reached for the folder. Nora gave it to me. The second page was my original intake note. My language was careful. No accusation. No drama. Just the kind of accounting caution people praised until it inconvenienced the wrong man. Vendor file should be frozen pending review of duplicate approval chain. Signature sequence inconsistent with policy. Recommend independent review before release of remaining payments. Below, it was a typed response from Lydia that I had never seen. Per GH. Do not include employee note in conduct packet unless counsel requests full background. I read it 3 times. Employee note. Not allegation. Not concern. Not misconduct. A note I had written to protect the company had been separated from the packet used to punish me. Nora pointed to the corner. There's a timestamp. The note was removed from the packet at 7:42 p.m. My meeting with HR had been scheduled at 7:51 p.m. 9 minutes. It had taken them 9 minutes to turn caution into a character flaw. Something moved in my chest, sharp enough that I had to lower the window an inch. Rain air slipped in. Nora did not tell me to breathe. That helped. What is the second thing? I asked. She pulled out a thinner sheet from behind the log. This one hurts. The warning made my jaw lock before I saw the page. It was a witness summary. Employee interviewed. Mara Denton. Question. Did Caleb Moore appear unusually focused on the vendor issue? Answer. Caleb mentioned the vendor file multiple times and seemed unable to move on. My eyes stayed on Mara's name. Mara, who had brought me her schedules at quarter end. Mara, whose reconciliation work I finished quietly when her father's surgery made her miss 3 close days. Mara had signed the bottom. Not under protest. Just a clean signature in blue ink. The page trembled once in my hand. Nora noticed, but she did not reach for it. Read the question above it, she said. I did. Question. Before this interview, were you informed that Caleb Moore had been cautioned regarding fixation on minor discrepancies? My throat changed shape around the words. They had told her what to see before asking what she saw. Mara had not invented the story. She had accepted the frame. Somehow, that hurt differently. It was easier to hate betrayal when it came dressed as malice. This looked like fear. Convenience. A tired person choosing the safest answer in a room where HR already knew the ending. Why show me this now? I asked. Because Grant will use her, Mara, and others. He'll say people were concerned before the file. He'll make it sound organic. I gave a short laugh that did not feel like mine. Organic. Nora lowered her face. I helped make it look that way. The heater hummed. Nora pulled one more item from the folder. A restaurant receipt. 2 dinners. 2 glasses of Pinot Noir. 1 private room fee. The vendor name appeared only in the loyalty account line at the bottom, shortened to initials. A handwritten note crossed the back. GH says final release goes through after CM cools down. C. Emmy. Me. I touched the ink without meaning to. Who wrote this? The vendor's regional rep. He left it in the scan batch with his reimbursement backup. How do you know? Because I scanned it. And then? And then I saw Grant's name, saw yours, and put the receipt back where I found it. She stared at the glove compartment instead of me. I told myself I was a temp. I told myself I didn't understand the whole thing. I told myself if I accused a director and got it wrong, no one would ever hire me again. You didn't accuse anyone, I said. No. Her hands tightened around the strap of her bag. I let them accuse you. The car had become too warm. I turned the heat down and placed the pages back in order. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Grant's name filled the screen. He let it ring. Then a message appeared. Caleb, do not let Nora escalate your situation. Come back inside and we can protect your future. Protect. I stared at that word until the screen dimmed. Don't answer him from the parking lot, Nora said. I know, but my thumb had already moved. Not to call, just to open the message. Just to write something calm, something professional, something that proved I was still reasonable. Nora turned toward the rain-streaked window. She did not stop me. That made it worse. The choice stayed mine. I set the phone face down. My breath came out rough. Third thing, I said. Nora slid the last page free. It was an email printed without the header, only the body and a partial signature. If Caleb connects vendor file to consulting route, move the concern memo forward. Use stability language, not performance. No sender name. No date. But the final line carried one phrase I knew from Grant's mouth. We need the room aligned before he starts telling his version. A car passed behind us, headlights washing over the page. Nora spoke quietly. I don't know who received that email. I only know it was printed from Lydia's inbox. Before I could answer, Mara's name appeared on my phone. This time, it was not a call. It was a text. I saw the preview before the screen went dark. Caleb, I need to tell you what they asked me to sign. By Monday morning, the story had arrived before I did. Not the true one, The useful one. The lobby guard checked my badge twice, even though I had walked through that entrance for 8 years. The receptionist gave me a smile with no warmth in it. Near the elevators, 2 analysts stopped talking so quickly that the quiet felt rehearsed. Nora walked beside me with the blue folder inside a plain canvas tote. She had offered to wait downstairs. I said no, then sat in my car for 7 minutes trying to become the kind of man who meant it. Mara had met us the night before at an all-night diner off Route 18. Her coat was buttoned wrong, her hair tied badly, and her hands shook around a coffee mug she never drank from. She told me Lydia had questioned her in a way that made the answers feel pre-selected. She said Grant's name never appeared, only management concern. She signed because refusing would make her look involved. Then she showed me her copy. Under her signature, someone had added 1 sentence after she left. Employee expressed concern that Caleb may become unpredictable if challenged. Mara had pressed both hands over her mouth. Now, she stood near the 7th floor elevators, waiting for us. I told them I want my statement corrected, she said. Who is them? Lydia. Grant. Legal. The elevator opened behind her. Inside were Brent, 2 junior accountants, and Dennis from procurement. Brent's eyes dropped to Nora's tote, then away. Nobody joked. We rode up with the floor numbers glowing above the doors, and everyone pretending the air had not changed. Brent held his phone against his chest like it might testify. When the doors opened, Lydia Crane was waiting in a cream blazer with a tablet against her ribs. Caleb, she said. Conference B. I haven't agreed to a meeting. It is not disciplinary. That is what you said last time. Her mouth tightened. Behind the glass wall of Conference B sat more people than a short meeting required. Grant was at the far end. Isaac Bell from outside Ethics Council had a closed notebook in front of him. 2 department managers stood by the credenza. Denise from payroll held a paper cup in both hands. At least 8 people. Not a meeting. An audience. Nora saw the trap before I did. Lydia's gaze moved to her tote. Nora, you are not currently an employee or invited participant. Grant rose and came to the door with careful calm. Let her come in, he said. Transparency is best. That was the trap. If Nora stayed outside, Grant could say she was hiding. If she came in, he could say I was being guided by a former assistant with regrets. Nora's fingers tightened on the strap. This is your meeting, she said to me. I'll sit where I'm allowed to sit. Allowed? Grant smiled. We entered Conference B. Glass walls made privacy impossible and dignity difficult. People outside could see who stood, who sat, who broke first. Isaac Bell introduced himself without theater. I am here to observe process. Grant gestured to a chair. Caleb, please. I stayed standing. My knees wanted the chair. My training wanted it too. Sit down. Lower the temperature. Show them you are cooperative. Lydia placed her tablet on the table. Before this becomes adversarial, she said, we want to acknowledge that Friday's dinner was unfortunate. Brent flinched near the wall. Unfortunate. A word that turned choices into weather. Grant folded his hands. What concerns us now is escalation. You left a private dinner with confidential material, accompanied by a former employee with access limitations. Several people expressed concern over your state of mind. My state of mind. There it was, dressed for work. Nora shifted behind me. Grant turned to her with a gentle expression. Nora, I understand you may feel guilt. But when personal regret enters a workplace matter, it can create a dangerous environment. Dangerous. The word landed harder than unstable. Dangerous had doors, badges, security logs, records that followed people after they left. Mara made a small sound. Isaac opened his notebook. Grant did not aim the word at me. He aimed it at everyone else, making sure the label found a place to land. My mouth opened. The apology came ready-made. I'm sorry people feel unsafe. I'm sorry this became public. I'm sorry for making this harder. It would have saved the morning and ruined the rest of my life. Nora's hand curled around the back of an empty chair. She wanted to speak. Grant wanted that too. If she defended me, he could point to her before she finished. See? He needs her to speak for him. So she did the harder thing. She stayed quiet. I placed both hands on the chair in front of me. I am not here to discuss my state of mind, I said. I am here because a document used against me was altered. Grant sighed just enough for the managers to hear. Caleb, this pattern is our concern. You turn every conversation back to documents, as if people's lived experience of your behavior does not matter. Denise stared into her coffee. Brent rubbed his thumb along his phone. Mara stepped forward. My statement was changed after I signed it. Lydia turned sharply. Mara, we can address that separately. No, Mara said. Her voice shook, but it carried. It is not separate if you are using me as one of the people concerned. Grant's pleasantness thinned. Everyone here is under pressure, he said. This is why we must be careful about group influence. Groupe influence. He meant Nora. He meant Mara. He meant any witness who stopped behaving like furniture. Outside the glass, employees slowed near the copy area. The meeting was becoming exactly what Grant wanted and exactly what he feared. Public enough to shame me, public enough for him to slip. Isaac finally spoke. Mr. Havel, what specific behavior are you identifying as dangerous? Grant answered too fast. Fixation, unauthorized possession of records, emotional volatility at a company function. At a company function. The dinner, Brent's announcement, the laughter, all of it folded neatly into my alleged volatility. Brent lifted his head. I didn't mean. Grant raised one hand and cut him off. That gesture changed the air. The man claiming to protect the room had silenced the person who started the humiliation. I moved the chair aside instead of sitting. The legs scraped across the floor. My behavior at the dinner, I said, was that I left. Grant's smile thinned. You left with confidential HR property. I left with my name on a folder this company used to damage my career. Your interpretation. My file. Lydia's tablet chimed. She silenced it too quickly. Isaac glanced at her. Nora still had not spoken. Her face was pale, but the tote stayed closed against her side. I understood then that silence was costing her too. Not the old silence, this one was restraint. Grant leaned back. Caleb, nobody here wants to hurt you. Brent looked at the floor. Mara wiped under one eye. Denise set down her cup, because her hand had started to shake. There were the witnesses. Not heroic. Not clean. Not enough. But present. Grant continued, softer now. We want to prevent you from making choices that confirm people's concerns. That was the public wound. A room full of people watching a man suggest that defending myself would prove I was dangerous. For half a breath, the old version of me reached for the apology. Then Nora's earlier sentence returned. You don't have to make this easier. I faced Isaac Bell, not Grant. I want the original packet preserved, I said. All versions of Mara's statement. The missing second page. Any email using the phrase stability language. Lydia went still. Grant's face did not change fast enough. Isaac wrote it down. Outside the glass, someone whispered my name. This time, I did not turn toward the sound. Isaac Bell called for a recess after Lydia failed to answer his third question. She said she needed to locate the complete packet. Grant said that would take time. Isaac closed his notebook. Then time is what we will take. Nobody liked that. Brent slipped out first, pale around the mouth. Mara stayed long enough to touch 2 fingers to the conference table, as if apologizing to the wood might somehow reach me. Then she left too. Nora and I ended up in the smallest room on the 7th floor. It was not quite a break room, and not quite a supply closet. There was a sink, a humming refrigerator, 3 boxes of printer paper, and a round table with 1 chair that wobbled if anyone breathed near it. A vending machine buzzed behind us with peanut crackers trapped against the glass. Nora set the canvas tote on the table. The blue folder stayed inside it. Neither of us reached for it. For a minute, the refrigerator clicked on and off. You should eat something, she said. I'm not hungry. I know. She fed $2 into the vending machine anyway. The crackers fell with a plastic thud. She tore the package open, placed it beside the sink, and filled a paper cup with water. No speech. No pity. Just food and water, like my body had been invited back into the conversation. I hated that it helped. Nora stayed near the vending machine, leaving half the room between us. You did well in there, she said. Don't. She nodded once and accepted the correction. That made it harder to be angry. I don't want to be praised for not apologizing, I said. Okay. I don't want to be managed either. I'm not trying to manage you. That's what everyone says before they do it carefully. Her face took the hit without defense. Good, some bitter part of me thought. Then I felt ashamed for wanting to hurt the first person who had walked into a room with proof. The crackers tasted like cardboard. I ate two because my stomach had begun to ache around nothing. Nora watched the floor. When I worked for Grant, she said, he had a way of making obedience feel like professionalism. I gave a tired laugh. He still does. He would ask for something that sounded ordinary. Pull a file. Reprint a packet. Remove a duplicate page because legal already had it. Later, you realized the ordinary thing had been placed in a line with 3 other ordinary things, and together they meant something else. She rubbed her thumb along the vending machine coin slot. I told myself I was too temporary to matter. You mattered when you said you didn't remember. The words came out sharper than I meant, but I did not take them back. Nora's eyes lifted. I know. No. I need you to know what that did. Not what it did to the case. To me. Her mouth parted, then closed. After you said that, I stood in my kitchen for 20 minutes with my coat still on. I kept thinking there had to be another explanation. Maybe I had remembered wrong. Maybe the file had never been on your cart. Maybe I had become exactly what Grant said I was. The refrigerator clicked again. My wife and I had filed separation papers before this reached its worst. She used to ask why I went quiet after work. I told her I was tired. That was easier than saying I did not know how to come home from being treated like a liability. Nora looked away at the word wife. She moved out 3 months ago, I said. Not because of you. Not because of Grant entirely. We had cracks before this. But the story helped. People kept telling her I was changing, and she started believing she was seeing the real me late. I'm sorry. I know you are. That doesn't fix it. No, that was the most honest thing between us so far. Nora brought the paper cup to the edge of the counter, not close enough to brush my hand. I took it. I didn't only stay quiet because I was afraid, she said. I waited. I needed Grant's recommendation. My mother's medical bills were behind. I had 2 interviews lined up. And both asked for a supervisor reference. Grant knew that. Lydia knew that. When you asked me about the audit file, I had already seen enough to know something was wrong. My grip tightened around the cup. How much? The sign-out sheet. Your intake note. The receipt. Water spilled across my knuckles and onto the floor. Nora reached for a paper towel, then stopped, as if even cleaning up might be too close to absolution. I took the towel myself. You saw the receipt before I lost my promotion. Yes. The word was small. It still filled the room. And you let me walk into HR. I did. Knowing they had changed the packet. I suspected it. Don't soften it. She flinched. Then she nodded. Knowing enough. My chest felt hollow in a clean, terrible way. There it was. Not a villain's lie. Not Grant's careful poison. A decent person making a selfish choice and calling it survival. That wound had a different temperature. Why come now? I asked. Because Friday afternoon Lydia called me. What? She said Grant wanted me at the dinner. She said it would be good to show there were no hard feelings after my temp contract ended. Then Brent texted me the restaurant address with a joke about you needing someone patient. Her voice roughened. I realized they were not only using what I had hidden. They were using me as proof that hiding it meant nothing. So this is guilt. Partly. At least that's honest. Not only guilt. I said nothing. When you came to the copier that day, you did not threaten me. You did not corner me. You just asked one clear question. I lied anyway. I have remembered your face every time I told myself I was a good person in a bad system. That sentence should have softened me. It did not. Not enough. Outside, someone pushed a cart down the hall. The wheels rattled over tile and faded. Nora wiped the spilled water near my shoe, not touching me, not asking me to move. I don't expect you to trust me, she said. Good. And I won't ask you to forgive me because I brought a folder. Good. The corner of her mouth trembled. You say that like you're grading an interview. I'm an accountant. We take comfort where we can. It was the first breath I had taken all morning that did not hurt. Nora heard it. Something in her face warmed, then disciplined itself. For one dangerous second, the room became too small in a different way. She was close now, kneeling with the damp paper towel in her hand. Her eyes rose to mine, tired and unguarded. I wanted to reach down and help her stand. I wanted to forgive her faster than she deserved because anger was exhausting and she was the only person who had said the lie out loud. Instead, I stepped back. Nora stood on her own. If anything happens between us, I said, it cannot start in the wreckage they made. Her face changed with a respect that hurt. Not because they laughed, she said. Not because you feel guilty. Not because you need someone on your side. I glanced at the toad on the table. I do need someone on my side. I know, but not like that. No, she said. Not like that. A knock came at the door. Isaac Bell opened it halfway, saw the water on the floor, the crackers on the counter, and both of us standing too carefully apart. They found another version of the packet, he said. Nora's hand tightened around the wet paper towel. Isaac's expression did not move. And Mr. Havel is now saying the original may have been corrupted before HR received it. Grant was already writing the next story. This time, I knew what it cost to let him. By noon, my badge stopped opening doors. Not all doors. Just enough of them to make the message clear. The elevator still carried me to the 7th floor. The glass entrance still recognized my face when security buzzed me in. But the accounting wing rejected my badge with a small red blink and a flat sound that seemed designed to embarrass without making noise. Nora stood 2 steps behind me with the canvas tote against her side. She did not say anything. That helped more than comfort would have. Lydia appeared from inside the wing with a cardboard banker's box in her arms. My name had been written on the lid in black marker. She had not written Caleb Moore this time, just Moore. As if the company had already begun reducing me to a file label. This is temporary, she said. What is? Administrative leave pending review. The phrase landed neatly. Soft words for being removed from your own desk. Behind the glass, people pretended not to watch. Denise from payroll turned away too late. Brent stood near the copy machine with his phone in his hand and no joke prepared. Mara was not there. I was glad for that. Lydia held out the box. We collected your personal items. You went through my desk? Facilities inventoried the contents. My desk had locked drawers. Her face tightened. Your workstation belongs to Westbridge. Nora's fingers flexed once on the tote strap. I took the box before she could speak. Inside were 3 framed photos, 2 coffee mugs, a spare tie, a calculator I had bought myself, and the small ceramic tiger my younger sister sent me after my first promotion. They had wrapped the tiger in a paper towel, but one ear had chipped anyway. That bothered me more than it should have. Lydia glanced at Nora. Legal has prepared documents for your review. Documents. A separation option. So not temporary. Administrative leave remains temporary. The option is voluntary. Voluntary was another company word. It meant the cage had a door if you agreed to call it kindness. Isaac Bell came down the hall with his notebook under one arm. He must have heard enough because he stopped beside us. Has Mr. Moore been advised to seek independent counsel before signing anything? Lydia's mouth opened, then closed. I was getting to that. Isaac looked at me. Do not sign in the hallway. Grant arrived before I could answer. He carried no folder. Men like Grant rarely carried the thing they wanted other people to fear. Caleb, he said. This does not need to become destructive. Caleb, the box grew heavier in my arms. Destructive to whom? To everyone. The company. Your colleagues? Your prospects. There it was. Prospects. Not a threat. A forecast. Lydia handed me an envelope. The top page showed a number large enough to make my stomach pull inward. 12 weeks of severance. Continued health coverage through the quarter. Neutral employment verification. Non-disparagement. Confidentiality. Release of claims. An NDA wearing a paycheck. The old version of me would have seen the money first. He would have thought about rent, health insurance, the silence at home, the way friends stop inviting you places when your life becomes complicated. He would have signed just to make the day end in a way people could understand. Nora saw the number too. Her eyes did not move, but her face changed. Grant noticed. I would hate for this matter to affect your next opportunity, he said. My phone buzzed in my pocket before I could respond. A message preview from Allison Pierce, the hiring manager at a nonprofit where I had interviewed the week before. Caleb, do you have a moment today? We received a concern related to your prior employment and want to clarify before proceeding. For a second, the hallway tipped. That was the practical cost. Not humiliation, not gossip. A locked badge. A box. A legal envelope. A job offer beginning to rot before it existed. I set the banker's box on the floor because my hands had started to sweat. Nora bent slightly, as if to steady the box, then stopped herself. Good. If she touched it, Grant would remember it later as dependency. I slipped the envelope under one arm and picked the box up again. I'll have counsel review this, I said. Grant's expression stayed mild. Of course, we encourage that. Then you won't mind if I ask Allison Pierce what she received. Lydia's eyes moved to Grant. Too fast. Grant said, I would advise against spreading an unresolved personnel issue. I'm asking about a message sent to a potential employer. If such a message exists, it would have been routine. Routine concert? He smiled without warmth. You are proving why the language was necessary. Nora inhaled sharply. This time, I raised one hand without turning. Not to silence her, to tell her I had it. She stopped. Grant saw that too, and something in his face hardened. He liked me better when my restraint looked like weakness. Isaac wrote another note. I need to leave, I said. Lydia stepped aside. Nobody stopped me. That should have made it feel like choice. It did not. Outside, rain had thinned into a gray mist. I carried the box across the parking lot while the ceramic tiger clicked against my coffee mug. Nora walked beside me, but not too close. At my car, I opened the trunk and stared at the empty space. For 8 years, my work had fit into calendars, audits, reconciliations, and locked drawers. Now it fit into a box small enough to slide beside jumper cables. The tiger clicked again. Nora finally spoke. You can put the folder with me if you want. No. Okay. I need to keep it. I know. And I need to be clear about something. She turned toward me. The mist collected on her eyelashes, but she did not wipe it away. I'm not coming home with you, I said. Her face went still. I wasn't asking. I know. But part of me wanted you to. The honesty felt like stepping onto ice. Nora looked down at the wet pavement between us. Because of the folder? Because of the folder. Because of the meeting. Because you're the only person standing here who doesn't make me feel like I'm defending my right to breathe. That's a dangerous reason. Yes. She nodded slowly. I placed the box in the trunk. The chipped tiger lay on top of my photos, one broken ear pointed upward. If anything ever happens between us, I said, it can't start with me having nowhere else to put my fear. Nora's throat moved. And it can't start with me trying to pay a debt. No. I won't be your proof that you're still worth choosing. The sentence hurt because it was clean. I closed the trunk. I don't want you to be proof. What do you want? The answer came too quickly, so I did not trust it. I leaned back against the car and let the mist cool my face. I want one thing in my life to be true because I chose it when I was steady. Nora held the tote closer. Then choose the next right thing. Not me. My phone buzzed again. Allison Pierce. Then a second message from an unknown number. If you care about your future, stop letting that woman make you look unstable. No signature. No need for one. Nora read the change in my face. What is it? I turned the screen toward her. She did not touch the phone. Her eyes narrowed at the wording. That came from someone who knows Grant's language. Across the lot, near the lobby doors, Brent stood under the awning with his phone at his side. He was not smiling now. When he realized we had seen him, he turned and walked back inside. The second crisis did not arrive like an explosion. It arrived as a phone call I wanted too badly to answer well. Allison Pierce called while Nora and I were still in the parking lot, with my work life boxed in the trunk and Grant's warning sitting in my pocket like a stone. I put her on speaker because I did not trust myself to remember every word. Caleb, she said, careful from the first syllable, I want to be direct. We received a confidential concern memo from Westbridge this morning. Nora's face tightened. What did it say? I asked. A prior supervisor raised concerns about judgment, fixation on internal disputes, and potential escalation involving confidential records. There it was. Grant had taken the language from Conference B and sent it into a future I had not even touched yet. I can explain, I said. The words came out too fast. Nora did not move, but her eyes caught mine through the open car door. Not warning. Remembering. I slowed down. I can provide context, I said. But I should do that in writing, after counsel reviews what was sent. A small silence passed through the phone. That would be appropriate, Allison said. For now, we're pausing the process. Pausing. Another soft word with teeth. After she hung up, the parking lot seemed larger than before. The building behind us still shone with clean glass and polite lighting. As if it had not just reached through a phone and touched my next job. My unknown number message buzzed again. Last chance. Sign the package. Stop embarrassing yourself. Nora read it over my shoulder. That is not Brent, she said. I turned toward the awning. Brent was gone. Then who? Someone who wants you to think everyone is watching. The worst part was that it worked. By 2 o'clock, former colleagues were emailing concern, gossip, and job links as if unemployment were already settled. The story had left Westbridge and started walking around without me. Isaac Bell sent a secure link at 2:17. Westbridge had produced another packet. This one included my intake note, but the metadata line was missing. Mara's amended statement was attached, but Mark disputed. The email containing stability language was listed as unverified printout. The severance agreement now had a deadline of 5 p.m. Friday. Nora and I read the message in a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment because I did not want to go home and see how much space one person could occupy when everything else had been removed. She bought black coffee for me without asking. I noticed. I hated that I noticed. The blue folder lay between us in the booth, closed. We need counsel, she said. I need money. She accepted that without flinching. 12 weeks won't last long if they poison every interview, I said. No. And if I fight, they will make me the fight. Not the packet, not the payments, me. Nora wrapped both hands around her paper cup. That is why Grant sent it outside the company. He wants the cost to arrive before the truth does. My phone screen lit again. This time it was Brent. I know who sent the text. I didn't write it. Please don't say I did. I showed Nora. She frowned. Why would he assume you would? Because he was under the awning. Or because someone told him he was seen. Another message came before I answered. Grant asked me to forward anything you send me. I'm sorry. I thought it was just about company property. There it was. Social betrayal, dressed as nervous cooperation. Brent had not planned the ruin. He had just carried pieces of it because someone important made carrying them feel safe. The coffee shop door opened, letting in wet air. Nora's gaze shifted past me. Brent stood inside with his hood up and his face raw with panic. I didn't send the anonymous text, he said before I could speak. The woman at the counter glanced over. Brent lowered his voice. I sent Grant a screenshot of your call log from Friday night. He asked if you contacted anyone after the dinner. I thought it was normal. I stared at him. My call log? You left your phone on the table when you went outside. He swallowed. He said we needed to document escalation. Nora set her cup down too hard. Coffee jumped onto the lid. Brent, she said, do you hear yourself? His eyes flashed with embarrassment. I said I'm sorry. No, I said. Both of them stopped. The word had come out quiet, but it had weight. You said you didn't send the text. That is not the same as being sorry. Brent's mouth worked once. Then he reached into his pocket and put his phone on the table. Grant texted me after you left, he said. I didn't delete it. Nora did not touch the phone. Neither did I. I read from where I sat. If Caleb reaches out, forward everything. We need a clear record before he reframes tonight. Before he reframes tonight. Grant had been afraid of my version before I had spoken it. Brent wiped his nose with his sleeve like a child. I thought you were overreacting, he said. Everybody did. That sentence should have been useless. It was not. It told me how much work the lie had done before the dinner ever began. When Brent left, he took none of the damage with him. Nora kept her eyes on the blue folder. There's something else, she said. I already knew by her voice that I would not like it. Say it? The email you saw in the car. The one printed from Lydia's inbox. What about it? I forwarded a copy to Lydia before I quit. My fingers went cold around the coffee cup. You what? I thought if HR had proof in their own system, they couldn't pretend it didn't exist. You sent it to the person who helped bury the packet. Yes. And that is how they knew you had seen it. She closed her eyes once. Yes. The coffee shop noise thinned around us. I could understand the mistake. That made it worse. Nora had tried to be careful in the most obedient way possible. She had handed a match back to the people already smelling of smoke. Grant knew before Friday that you might talk, I said. Yes. So the dinner was not just a joke. No. It was bait. Her face folded, not into tears, but into responsibility. I think so. My phone buzzed with a new email from Lydia. Subject: Notice of unauthorized disclosure and final separation offer. The message was short. Council had determined that possession or sharing of Westbridge personnel materials may violate company policy. The separation offer would expire Friday at 5 p.m. Acceptance would include neutral reference language. Rejection could result in further action. Further action. I could hear Grant's voice in the phrase. A PDF sat attached beneath it. My thumb hovered over the file. Open it. Sign it. End this. The thought did not feel cowardly. It felt practical. Rent was practical. Health insurance was practical. Being employable was practical. Nora said nothing. The choice stayed ugly and mine. I placed the phone face down. I need to call a lawyer. Her shoulders eased only a little. Before either of us moved, another email arrived. Not from Lydia. From Isaac Bell. Please preserve the anonymous text. Mr. Havel has just stated, on record, that he had no contact with Brent Cole after Friday's dinner. I read it twice. Then I turned Brent's message back toward Nora. Grant had made his crack. Small. Careless. Deniable if isolated. But no longer invisible. Nora did not smile. Neither did I. Because by then, the truth had stopped feeling like rescue. It felt like a door that would cost something every time I opened it. Friday arrived with a deadline and a conference room cleaned too well. The severance offer expired at 5. At 3, Isaac Bell scheduled what he called a preservation review, dull enough for Grant to underestimate it. I came with my own lawyer. Elaine Porter did not smile when Lydia offered coffee. She placed a yellow legal pad on the table and said, "My client will answer direct questions. He will not respond to character summaries." Grant sat across from me in a navy suit with no tie. The missing tie was supposed to make him look reasonable. Lydia had 3 folders stacked in front of her. Brent hovered near the wall. Mara sat by the door with both hands around a paper cup. Isaac took the center seat. Nora was there too. Not beside me, I had asked her to sit at the far end, close enough to be present, far enough that nobody could turn her into my reason. She accepted that without flinching. The blue folder rested in front of me, closed. Grant's eyes touched it once, then left it alone. Isaac began. We are here to clarify document versions, timeline, and preservation obligations. This is not a disciplinary hearing. Grant nodded softly. That is important. Caleb has felt attacked. And I want to be sensitive to that. Elaine wrote one word on her pad. Felt. Grant continued. The difficulty is that Caleb's perception has narrowed around one vendor issue. When challenged, he escalates. Friday's dinner, the removal of personnel material, the involvement of a former assistant. My name is Nora, Nora said. Only that. Grant smiled toward her. Of course. Isaac turned to me. Mr. Moore, do you want to respond? The old path opened. I could explain tone, intent, pressure. I could make myself sound calm enough for people trained to hear danger. Instead, I opened the folder. Start with the timeline, I said. Lydia's fingers tightened around her top folder. I slid out the sign-out sheet. March 3rd, 8:14 a.m. I submitted an internal note recommending the vendor file be frozen pending review. At 9:02, Grant signed out the audit file. At 9:31, Lydia signed it out. At 7:42 p.m., my note was removed from the conduct packet. 9 minutes later, my HR meeting was scheduled. Grant sighed. That is an interpretation of administrative handling. No, it is a sequence. I placed Mara's statement beside it. Mara was asked whether I seemed fixated after being told I had already been cautioned for fixation. After she signed, someone added the sentence unpredictable if challenged. Mara's cup crumpled slightly in her grip. Isaac turned to Lydia. Who added that sentence? Lydia stared at her folders. I would need to check the version history. Elaine said, please do. Grant leaned forward. This is exactly the concern. Caleb is presenting normal workplace documentation as conspiracy. Brent shifted near the wall. I turned one page. Then Brent's text should be normal too. Brent's face drained. I read it aloud. If Caleb reaches out, forward everything. We need a clear record before he reframes tonight. Grant did not move. Isaac looked at him. You stated you had no contact with Mr. Cole after Friday's dinner. I had no substantive contact. Brent lifted his head. You told me to send anything he sent. Grant's voice cooled. Brent, you may be misremembering the context. There it was. The same door he had built for Nora. I do not remember. Misremembering. Words that made another person carry the uncertainty. Mara set down her cup. You told me legal already knew Caleb was unstable before my interview. Grant's eyes flicked toward her, not anger. Calculation. Everyone was under stress, he said. I was trying to protect the company. That was the first time protect sounded frightened. I pulled out the restaurant receipt. You met the vendor's regional rep the night before my promotion was revoked. Grant glanced at it too briefly. Westbridge managers meet vendors all the time. 2 glasses of wine. Private room fee. Handwritten note on the back. Grant says final release goes through after CM cools down. Lydia whispered. Grant. He ignored her. Isaac held out one hand. May I see the receipt? I passed him a copy, not the original copy Nora had brought. Grant noticed the word copy on the bottom margin. His mouth tightened. Again, we have a chain of custody problem with material obtained by a former temp who admits she mishandled files. Nora's face changed, but she stayed silent. This was not hers to fight. She admits it, I said. That is the difference. Grant's gaze returned to me. And you admit to taking confidential personnel records out of a restaurant. I admit to refusing to leave my name inside a lie. The sentence landed clean. Grant's patience slipped. Your name was in a personnel process because your conduct required review. My conduct was asking why payments were released after a freeze recommendation. You were not authorized to contact the vendor. I did not contact the vendor. You attempted to interfere with vendor processing. I requested review. You became fixated. I became accurate. Elaine's pen paused. Brent stared at the carpet. Grant sat back, but one hand moved under the table. A phone screen lit near his knee. Isaac saw it. Mr. Havel, please place your phone on the table. Grant's smile returned late. Of course. The phone landed face up. A new notification showed before the screen went dark. Lydia. Don't mention unredacted. Grant turned it over too quickly. Nobody spoke. Elaine said, please preserve that device. Grant's control cracked. You people do not understand what he has, he said. If he circulates the unredacted file, the exposure is enormous. Unredacted. I had not said it. Elaine had not said it. Isaac had not said it. Grant had named the thing he claimed did not exist. Lydia's face went gray. Isaac's voice stayed even. Mr. Havel, what unredacted file are you referring to? Grant opened his mouth. No polished sentence came out. That was his real face. Not monstrous. Smaller than that. A man furious that the room had stopped accepting his captions. I took one page from the folder. My original intake note with the metadata line attached. I did not come here to destroy Westbridge, I said. I came because someone used Westbridge to destroy a person who asked the right question. Grant laughed once. It was the wrong sound. You think you are righteous because a temp brought you stolen paper? No. I touched the edge of my note. I think I made a mistake when I believed being easy to hurt made me good to trust. Mara began to cry without covering her face. I did not turn away from Grant. You did not protect the company, I said. You taught it how to lie. That sentence ended something. Not the investigation. Not the damage. Not the fear waiting outside. But the part where I kept offering him a better version of himself than he had earned. Isaac closed his notebook. This meeting is paused. Mr. Havel, Miss Crane, preserve all devices, packet versions, vendor correspondence, and communications with Mr. Cole and Miss Whitaker. No further contact with Mr. Moore's prospective employers. Grant stood too fast. His chair struck the wall. I will not be ambushed by manipulated documents. Elaine looked up. Then you should welcome preservation. Brent made a sound close to a laugh and swallowed it. Grant heard him. That was when I knew the room had changed. Not because they loved me. Not because they suddenly became brave. Because the story had slipped out of Grant's hands. I gathered the folder slowly. Nora did not come to me. She stayed seated while I stood on my own. At the door, Isaac stopped me. Mr. Moore, about the separation agreement. I removed the envelope from my bag. The signature line was still blank. For a moment, I thought of 12 weeks of pay, health coverage, and a quiet exit. Then I tore the agreement once, clean down the middle. Not for theater. For myself. I'm not signing a lie so they can call it peace, I said. This time, when someone whispered my name outside the glass, it did not sound like a warning. It sounded like the beginning of a witness list. The investigation did not fix my life. It rearranged the damage into folders other people could understand. Grant was placed on leave the following Tuesday. Westbridge did not announce it that way. They said he was stepping back while an independent review proceeded. Lydia was reassigned to policy support, which sounded cleaner than admitting she had helped turn my own caution into a weapon. Brent sent a 3-paragraph apology that used the word joke twice before it used the word cruel. Mara corrected her statement and cried when she sent it, though she did not ask me to make her feel better about signing the first one. I appreciated that. Allison Pierce called after Isaac sent a preservation notice to Westbridge. We are reopening your application, she said. Not offering the job. Not undoing the memo. Just reopening. A month earlier, I would have thanked her too quickly. That day, I said, I understand. I'll send the documentation through my lawyer. My voice did not shake until after the call ended. Nora heard it from across my kitchen, but she did not come closer. That was one of the ways we learned each other slowly. She had come by to return the blue folder after Elaine made certified copies. The folder looked smaller on my table than it had in the restaurant, its corners soft now, its tab bent from being opened too many times by hands that needed it to mean more than paper. My name was still written across it. Caleb Moore. For weeks, seeing that name had made my stomach tighten. Now it made me tired. Nora placed 2 coffees beside it. Mine was black. Hers had too much cream because she claimed bitterness should have limits. I wanted to smile, but some muscles take longer to believe they are safe. You don't have to keep it out, she said. I know. You also don't have to hide it. I know that too. The old Caleb would have asked what she thought I should do. The newer version still wanted to, but he knew better than to call dependency tenderness. So, I opened the drawer beside the table and placed the folder inside. Not buried. Not displayed. Kept. Nora watched without comment. That mattered. 2 weeks later, Westbridge offered a settlement through Elaine. It included corrected employment records, written withdrawal of the concern memo, and confirmation that no further negative reference would be sent. Grant's name appeared nowhere in the language. Companies have their own way of protecting ghosts. I did not get my promotion back. I did not get my office back. Denise mailed the chipped ceramic tiger to me in a padded envelope with a note that said, I should have said something sooner. The broken ear had been glued badly, leaving a white line across the orange glaze. I set it on my new desk at the nonprofit after Allison hired me on a 90-day probation period. Probation. Another word with teeth. Still, the desk was mine. The work was smaller. No private dining rooms. No directors who performed kindness with witnesses. Just grant reconciliations, donation reports, and a payroll system that made terrible clicking sounds every Friday morning. Peace, I learned, was not always beautiful. Sometimes it was just boring enough to let you breathe. Nora and I did not become a love story all at once. For a while, we were careful emails and coffee after legal calls. Then lunches that ended before they became hiding places. Then one Saturday, she helped me carry a used bookshelf up 3 flights of stairs and refused to let me pay her back with anything except pizza. At my apartment door, she said, Ask me tomorrow. I had not asked anything. That was the point. So I did. The next day, standing in the grocery store parking lot with a bag of apples splitting between us, I asked if she wanted dinner without a folder, without Grant, without guilt sitting in the 3rd chair. She said yes. Then she said, But if you ever forgive me because it is easier than staying honest, I'll make you take it back. I believed her. Months passed. Some people apologized. Some avoided me. Some acted too cheerful when we crossed paths, as if friendliness could erase what their silence had helped build. I learned not every apology needed my immediate forgiveness to be complete. One Friday evening, Nora and I returned to the same restaurant where the dinner had happened. Not for symbolism. Not because I wanted to prove anything. The nonprofit's finance team chose it for a small celebration after our audit came back clean. And I was tired of letting one table own an entire room in my mind. We sat near the windows. Rain ticked against the glass. For a moment, my body remembered before I did. A laugh rose from a table behind us, loud and sudden, and my hand tightened around the water glass. The old heat moved up my neck. My eyes found exits, corners, reflections in the window. Nora noticed. She did not ask, Are you okay? That question sometimes makes a person perform okay for the asker. Instead, she reached into her bag and placed one folded sheet of paper beside my plate. Not the folder. A copy of my first clean audit note from the new job, with my initials at the bottom and Allison's comment in the margin. Good catch. Thank you for flagging this early. The laugh behind us faded into ordinary noise. I touched the paper once. Nora's hand stayed on her side of the table. Still yours to tell, she said. I breathed in slowly. Not alone, though. Her smile came small and late, but it stayed. The blue folder was at home in the drawer. The chipped tiger was on my desk. The file was not gone. The damage was not erased. Some mornings, I still paused before opening email. Some laughter still made my body prepare for cruelty before my mind could correct it. But that night, nobody at the table was asking me to make my own humiliation easier to swallow. Nora lifted her coffee cup. I lifted mine. No toast. No speech. Just the small, stubborn sound of 2 cups touching in a place that had once taught me how quiet a lie could be. Some people do not ruin your life by shouting. They do it by writing a version of you that everyone else can repeat without feeling cruel. And sometimes, the person who helps you survive is not the one who fixes everything. It is the one who finally says, "No, that is not what happened." If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments, have you ever had to fight for the truth of your own life? And if you want more stories like this, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.